I'd like to bring the November 11th, 2019 Select Board meeting of the Guilford community together, opening the meeting. And it is Veterans Day, November 11/11, and we'd like to make sure that we honor and acknowledge veterans all across our country who remain alive and those who gave their lives for our country, and particularly those veterans who reside in Guilford or did reside in Guilford. Thank you for your service. We acknowledge and honor you. I'd like to recognize our public. There you are, public. How are you?
It's Steve. It's always one.
And the
You're
rules
here.
of procedure which govern the way that the public and the select board interact are on our table here. Steve, I presume that you've signed in.
Yes, he has.
Thank you. And I would ask, are there any additions to the agenda?
I have none.
Changes to the agenda, I do have one.
Okay.
That is that I had a communication with Isaac Hayes this afternoon. Isaac Wagner. Isaac Hayes was a good rock and roll.
Waiting to see how that one came out.
Isaac Wagner, our consultant, and there's not an update except to say that the contracts, his contract and the architect's contract will be signed as of tonight, and then we'll get copies of them, but that's the only update there is, so we can remove that from the agenda.
The library?
Yeah, the library, the feasibility study for the library addition. Do any other changes to the agenda order?
Nope.
Okay. Do I have approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of October 28th, 2019? Have we read them, and can we approve them? Do I have a motion?
I didn't read them because I couldn't find them.
I admittedly didn't do my usual labeling of the minutes.
Okay.
So
I was
Were they
wondering
in
where
the-
they were, yeah.
they were at the very bottom of the
Oh.
list, and I realized that this morning, and so.
Well, I went through your list,
Yeah.
and then I went to the select board.
Can we table that so
Yeah,
that the
By all
select
means,
board has
we've done it in the past.
time to read it? So
Yeah,
we'll
thank
table
you.
the approval of the minutes. And I would ask that everyone, and now we can find the minutes in our folder? Okay, thank you,
Wonderful.
Peter.
Yeah, they should be at the top now because I changed their label to match what the agenda says. So
Excellent.
my apologies for that.
Okay.
No.
And our next order of business on the agenda is a highway update. Peter?
Yep, I spoke with Dan on Thursday before he left for vacation, and a couple of the guys have been continuing work down on Packer Corners Road, particularly hammering a bunch of ledge and widening the road down where it meets Abishai Prince Road. And so it's looking quite improved down there. Now
We
that
can verify
Yes.
that. They made a lay-by on Dead Man's Curve.
it is
And
now.
it's not called that lightly.
So yes, it's now 2 cars wide there instead of about half a car
Right,
wide.
it's a great enhancement.
They've been blowing leaves, doing a little bit of mowing when it's not raining, and most of their time this past week was a week and a half has been spent getting the equipment ready for snow. So putting on snow tires, greasing up equipment, putting plows on, that sort of thing.
Excellent.
So,
It's supposed to snow tomorrow.
but that's it. Yeah, and then
And then the Carpenter Hill Culvert update.
yes, so I both spoke with the owner of the company doing the work and with his foreman today, and, fingers crossed, we should theoretically have Carpenter Hill Road open by Friday evening.
This Friday
By this
evening?
Friday evening, yes.
That's great.
The sign does say till December 1st, barring any incidents. Basically, the one thing that may delay it is if we actually get snow instead of freezing rain. They could care less about freezing rain, but if we get snow, that could hamper their work for the next couple of days. But tentatively, they're saying Friday evening will be open.
Terrific.
So I was over there around lunchtime today, and they had taken all the forms off the walls, and we're starting to backfill. The deck will be delivered on Thursday. That's the main thing that may be disrupted by snow. And then once the deck is set in place, they will start backfilling over the top of it and open up the road.
Great. Thank you, Peter. On to new business, and this is also you, Peter, reporting out.
Yep.
The annual post-tax fund transfers, the transfer of funds.
Yep, so every fall, about a month after taxes have been collected and the treasurer has done her work, I present to the select board a list of funds that were approved by residents at town meeting day. And basically, I need your authorization to move them out of the tax fund and disperse them. So this includes all of our social service agencies that were funded at town meeting day, the fire department, Wyndham Regional Commission, several other groups and organizations, and then the last but not least is transferring funds from the tax fund into the highway fund to even out their funds for the rest of the year.
So will you be needing a motion for that?
Most definitely, as usual, we need a motion just to approve.
Do I have a motion to move the funds from the tax fund to other funds that we were going to?
You mean to authorize Peter to do it?
Yes.
I would so move.
Mhm. Do I have a second? Any discussion?
My only request in the future as we make these, I think we're pretty versed on what they are and what the transfer is, but to have an itemized list of exactly, for this meeting, where we are approving it, for each one.
That's a very good
And
idea.
that
So
way,
was this not itemized enough?
well,
Because, so this is the
no,
actual.
it isn't.
It's in the budget.
So this is the actual transaction that happens
Right.
with those. And then
These are
what's
the
this?
accounting transactions.
This is the accounting transaction, yeah.
Right. The taxes is very clear, obviously, but we're moving more, well, then maybe I'm not fully understanding the record. I understand the accounting transaction being done here, but I don't know what the 500,000 and the 997,000 is broken down.
Okay, so the 997,000 is the funds that go to the highway department.
Okay,
That's their, all of their funds for
Okay.
FY '20. And then the 500,000, 230,064 dollars of that goes to the fire department.
right, but that's my
So he
point.
wants it to be
All I'm
itemized.
saying is, in the future, with these numbers, that's fine,
Sure.
but just break them down specifically.
Okay.
So Wyndham Regional's listed, all the other, nonprofits that we support are
As well as
listed.
rescue.
For rescue, everything. It's just, for me, it's a lot
Sure.
easier
No,
to
and
see.
that
in
would, I
an
think would be
accounting
very
record.
helpful.
Sure.
But I am comfortable with
Sure, sure.
what we have
I just
discussed
have-
in the past.
It's not a problem, I'll happily do
Thank
that
you.
in the future. This is just the way that I presented to select board in the past, and you guys hadn't requested in the past. so-
And I
So will you put
recognize
that
that.
in the minutes that that request has been made, and that you agreed to do that? So were there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. All right, on to the Conservation Commission resignation. That's also in
Yes.
your bailiwick, Peter.
Yes, I was notified by Linda Hecker, the chair of the Conservation Commission, that one of their members who's been with them 6 or 7 years is stepping down just because he has some personal conflicts. He's a young man, very busy, and just has not been able to fulfill his duties, and he feels that it would be better if someone who had more time could do so. So they are sad to see him go, but it's how life goes.
So are we to understand that they'll come to us with their candidate to replace him?
If you request them to. I mean, because as Gordon and I were talking about before the meeting, it technically falls on you to replace the candidate. They have offered to assist you in finding a candidate, since they are more connected to folks who may be interested in conservation within the community.
Do you know if they have someone in mind?
Not at the moment, at least not as of last Wednesday when Linda let me know.
So we want to tell our listening and watching public that we're looking for a Conservation Commission member, and that information should be funnel to the Conservation Commission or to you, Peter, if someone?
Either or.
Either or.
And I guess also, if people want to know more about the Conservation Commission, they can ask Peter, and he can refer them to one of the members of the Conservation Commission.
Absolutely.
Any further remarks on that regard?
Well, I guess we want to thank Rory for his years of service.
Yes, definitely.
And knowing Rory, I think he's still gonna try to help out when he's
Oh, I'm
available.
sure
We
he
hope
will.
so.
You know, he's pretty active.
He has youth and time on
Right.
his side.
Thank you, Rory.
Thank you, and thank you, Rory. Now, on to the letter from the state's attorney. Do you want me to go through this, Peter, or do you want to present this to us?
I was under the impression you wanted to, but if you...
No, I can do that. We received a letter dated November 1st from the State of Vermont Office of Attorney General and inviting Vermont cities, including Guilford, and cities and towns to join a negotiation class involving opioid-related litigation. We believe, I'm just reading from the first paragraph and then we don't need to read any further. We believe Vermont cities and towns should seriously consider joining the negotiation class because it provides a way to participate in recent efforts to settle ongoing litigation against the manufacturers, distributors, and large pharmacies that created the opioid epidemic. The negotiation class provides the opportunity to participate without having to file a lawsuit, hire attorneys, and incur additional attorney's fees. Vermont cities and towns will be automatically enrolled in the negotiation class unless they opt out by November 22, 2019. And so that basically summarizes what the request is of the Attorney General, that we do not opt out. We have the option of opting out. I would recommend that we don't opt out because then we become part of this negotiation class that wants to bring litigation to those considered to be responsible for the opioid crisis, both nationally and here in Vermont. And as we know, our cities and towns are tremendously burdened in Vermont by the opioid epidemic.
And all of our families know someone who has had their lives ruined. I think we should also post, if you haven't already, on the town website, the letter, and also there's a frequently asked questions.
I don't know if the letter has to be on there.
No, but it would be good to, if people want to know more about
This link, maybe.
this.
The link.
Yeah, I thought that.
I would put the link on, but not the letter.
Yeah, not the letter,
Yeah.
but the link with maybe a paragraph explaining it. When you
I don't
have
think we
time.
need a motion to not opt out. I don't believe that we do, or do you?
I think just to have it formalized.
That we should?
It's a group decision,
Okay.
whether you opt in or opt out. I think that in this instance, since they are requesting a formal action from you, I think it would be advised to give a formal action regardless of which direction
Well,
you
I
choose.
should.
But if we don't do anything, we're
If you
part
don't
of
do
it
anything,
automatically,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
But either
But-
way.
So I would express the motion that we agree to not opt out of the negotiation class as presented by the Vermont Office of the Attorney General.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, thank you very much. The motion is carried unanimously. All right, town meeting preparations and town officers.
yes, you're looking at me.
I can discuss that
As I'm
too.
sorry, I'm just trying to type.
I can tell you what the headline here is that Peter and I, in our weekly meeting, were discussing the fact that the town meeting is coming up in March, which
So
is
it is.
hard upon us.
Planning has already begun,
So,
so.
and our planning has already begun, and we wanted to discuss what the select board needs to do in regard to preparing for the town meeting, and also to discuss the fact that Zahn, I believe, is going to run. Again, isn't that correct?
Well, if you wish to continue
Yes.
after.
I need to run in order to continue after.
That's
That's
right.
correct. So we will have, so here's what we will have. We will have Zahn's position, which will be the remaining 1 year of a 3-year term.
So it's really Sheila's position?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
but it's
The
not yours.
position occupied by Sheila.
formerly
Yes.
occupied.
Yes.
yeah.
So it's a 1-year position of a 3-year position that had previously been filled. Veranda's 3-year position is
Is
up
up.
for reelection. And Gordon's 2-year position is also up for reelection. So we have 3 open select board positions this year, whereas normally we only have 2.
And those who are running, including Gordon, I believe.
No, I will not be running moving forward, which Zahn might want to think,
But
well,
he-
if I liked all this experience I'm getting on the select board, I might want to run for Gordon's term and leave
go ahead
it
and
1
get
year. No, the reason I'm saying
What are
that,
you-
it's up
your
to
2-year
you.
your
I'm a-
2-year.
I have a 2-year term that will be
And Sheila's a
available.
3-year term?
Yeah.
But don't you have to do the 1 year for Sheila, then again for the 3-year?
So I'd have to do.
So
it
you
this
have to
year.
make that decision.
So
I'm
you-
just
you'd
throwing
be
it out there. I
running
don't know what
2 years in a
Veranda's.
row if you chose to do so.
That's what.
So
that's
then,
why I'm-
if say, so to be clear, if I chose to think
Right.
of going in this direction, then
The
there would need to
2-year.
be another person who would.
Correct.
1
Who
year.
would
Take
take the
the
1 year.
former
That would
Sheila's
take the
position.
1-year position.
And we want to remind you that you needed to have a petition and have
Yeah,
signatures.
I have to go
correct.
I have to get some
Oh,
signatures.
so
Yes.
all of us.
Is there a deadline for
Yes.
Well,
that?
those who
Yes.
are running.
To
me.
Yeah.
Anyone
So,
in,
We'll talk about
anyone
that in a
in,
minute, I hope.
Yeah, I was just gonna, did you want to say something?
no, I was just gonna say that anyone in addition to the individuals that are listed may also run with the
Absolutely.
petition. signed
So you need to
petition
have a
as well.
minimum of 88 signatures?
Oh,
18, right?
I thought it was,
88. I got,
Or no, is it for select board?
I was told 13.
No, select
No,
board,
it's
no,
more than
Michael's,
that.
it's 18,
It's-
you're right.
it's-
just the
I-
number, it's talking
No,
about
that's, I'm sorry, I'm thinking.
It's
of-
like 20, yeah.
It's
All
a
of the other-
percentage of the population.
Yeah, it's just,
So don't
And
we
Penny
have
can
2,100
assist by having your petition.
yeah, it's 1%
Right here.
for select board
Yeah.
members. So it's about 18 signatures for select board members.
Very
I
easy.
apologize, the 88 is for the other fiscal petitions that are being submitted. So 18 for select board members.
But we
I-
want
And
to
it's-
encourage people.
Oh, everyone is encouraged
Absolutely.
to run, absolutely. We need folks to come forward.
And the deadline is the 22nd of January of 2020, that those must be submitted to the
Signed
town
petitions.
clerk. Yes, signed to the town clerk. And if there are not enough signatures or some signatures are invalid, then she will give you an additional 2 days to get the invalid signatures corrected.
January what?
22nd.
Okay.
And so do we make up our own petitions or are there just regular petitions?
Penny has-
Penny has
Penny
it.
has copy of the petitions.
Okay.
We also need a dog officer and a constable. And there are also, as we noted in a couple select board meetings ago, the justice of the peace.
Oh,
And,
we have an opening for a justice of the peace.
and several other open positions.
Why do we have that?
Sorry, is it,
Mark,
yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Huh?
Merrick Garland's passing.
Yeah.
Oh,
We discussed that here last
Yeah,
session.
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
okay. I knew that, yeah, but
So we have a few,
I guess.
May I
didn't
ask
know
that you,
just
in the
peace.
minutes, write all the open positions?
Yep.
And the terms?
Yep.
I think that would be very helpful to the select board and the public as
Yep.
well, to see that written out clearly.
Is there a place on the website where that's?
not at the moment. I mean, we do have there are a couple places that list what term lengths are, but generally this time of year, I will put a posting on the website saying, this is what's open. And because some of the openings Penny oversees, and then some of them I oversee, and so generally she and I need to sit down and go through a list and just to make sure that we're on the same page.
Yeah.
But I will do that and get something on the website so people know.
Great.
And in regard to other preparations for a town meeting, well, of course, we need the budget and the town and the warning,
And the-
right?
Yeah, we're a ways off on that.
Yeah, but those are things that are coming up for us. that we have
Well,
to-
And you have a tickler system for this,
Yeah.
right?
I do.
Yeah.
And
I knew you
also,
Fairly well honed. one.
Yes.
is Have you sent out deadlines for entries in the town report?
I have, and Richard has been CC'd on those.
Oh, good.
I have received a few, not as many as I like, so any social service agencies or other groups who generally submit information to our town report, please kindly do so. If I have forgotten you, I apologize. Please reach out via phone or email or stop in the office.
Great. Thank you very much. And then now we have on to our updates and discussions. Peter is going to present on the personnel policy change suggestion.
Oh, yes.
So, it was brought to my attention by an employee that the section here, I've got copies for all of you folks if you want to. So this is what I'm passing out right now is the policy as it stands currently.
Oh, yeah.
It was pointed out to me by a current employee that under the vacation leave portion of the personnel policy that there are a number of things that are a bit confusing here. I'm just bringing up my notes. So in the personnel policy at the moment, it lists out the years of service and then the annual accrual rate that occurs with that. And so as was first pointed out to me is the very first year is termed, it's front-loaded. So your vacation days begin on your date of hire. So for example, on your date of hire, you get 5 vacation days for that first year. Then all consecutive years afterwards, the way that it's written is vacation days are backloaded. So it means that they're not given to you until you've completed a year. And so that's confusing that we have it both ways. So I think for consistency, we need to have it either front-loaded or back-loaded. We can't have it both. And so here's a copy of the draft I shared with the select board. And so I have, the second point about that is there are assumptions made about a number of years of service as far as whether or not how much you get and or when it occurs. For example, your second year of employment, it does not state. An assumption was made that the second year of employment is the same as the first year. But my personal belief is if we have a policy, the policy should be explicit, because otherwise what's the point of having a policy? And if it's not easily understood,
Agreed.
then why do we even have one? And so with that, I have got some feedback from coworkers, and I have made some changes here for the select board, or recommendations to make changes. So for the first one is at date of hire and the beginning of the second year is 5 days of accrual. And then instead of after completion of
Right.
the third year, it says at the beginning, or at the completion of the second year, at the beginning of the third year, you get 10 days. The beginning of the 4th through 14th, and so on and so forth, as you can see. So it's just making all of them front-loaded versus back-loaded.
And to go into effect on the anniversary of the date of hire.
So that's the other thing is, so it was also pointed out that the policy as it states says vacation leave accrual begins on employee's date of hire and accrues thereafter on the monthly anniversary date of the employee's date of hire as earned. Unfortunately, it has not been applied this way. It has been applied on July 1st, which is the beginning of our fiscal year. My personal feeling is I can understand arguments from both sides. I can understand why it's applied at the beginning of the fiscal year. It makes it much easier for fiscal management, makes it much easier for payroll. But the select board you need to decide whether or not you want it to accrue on a person's anniversary or on the beginning of the fiscal year. The downside to that is employees who were hired after this policy was put into place, either, depending on their date of hire, they either get an increase in their vacation days before it's technically due to them, or some people don't get the increase until after it's due to them,
So
depending on their date
that
of
would be a
hire.
good argument to have it at the beginning of the fiscal year, July 1st.
Correct,
Wait.
but the recommendation then is for those employees who were on the short end of that, I think that they should be prorated between when they were hired and July 1st. So they,
To catch them up.
To catch them up.
I
to where
think that's the
everyone else.
easier way
Yeah.
to handle that, personally.
Penny's personal feeling is that she prefers it on July 1st.
Yep.
For the
Managing
reasons
it.
already
Yeah.
stated. Because then otherwise she has to manage whatever 13 people.
Right.
So it's
Throughout
that,
the
so
year.
then so it would read at the date of hire, and then at the beginning of the third year, on July 1st, it would have to read, or something like that.
It's tricky.
You'd have to say when
Right.
when it comes
Or
into effect.
else the part about July 1st could be in another paragraph, further explicating.
Yes.
So that could be in this paragraph, vacation leave accrual begins on an employee's date of hire and
Fiscal year
thereafter
start.
accrues at July 1st. for the-
Sure.
And then
Well,
the
but that's-
prorating
yeah.
part could.
Well, that
be-
doesn't need to appear in here. The prorating part is just for this current, the situation we're in.
Correct, yeah. So we've got a couple of employees that have been hired since this was implemented, but depending on the wording that we choose, any future employees that get hired,
Would
it-
still-
it would then apply by the corrected language.
Correct.
And we
But
wouldn't
it's-
have to catch up then.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
So can I suggest, so this, what we've just discussed is not here.
No, because it needed to be discussed openly, and I
Right.
didn't solicit your opinions.
So can we ask you to then go back and draft it the way that we've discussed it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It seems to me that it would, to describe, somehow keep your anniversary date involved in all this calculations here, is confusing.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you just say on date of hire, you automatically get 5 days. And then
thereafter-
wherever year 1 falls, wherever year 2 falls, then that begins to adjust things on July 1st.
So-
July 1st.
May I ask this, since both Veranda and Zahn have given some good suggestions, could I ask you to assist me in writing this, and I'll draft it and then get your
Sure.
feedback on that?
Sure.
Good.
Is that
I also had one other note. It seems, unless I'm misinterpreting, it seems that I don't know which of these is, I don't know which one's in practice, actually, or if any of this is in practice, but it seems to me that somebody's losing out on 5 days of vacation here.
That's correct, yeah.
If you go from this version to this version. The person in the second year seems to be losing 5 days of vacation.
Yep, and that's,
Is that by design?
I mean, that's the way that it was originally intended.
But this
from
somehow
it. Yeah,
articulates it differently.
that's correct.
So the intention is to have an employee, here's their date of hire, here comes July 1st, and then for 2 years, they're supposed to get 5 days of
That's
vacation.
correct.
I see, okay. Then this.
At least,
then
if
it's-
you guys want to change that, I'm sure employees won't be upset about that.
No, I just was noticing a difference.
That's
Yeah.
correct, but because I was part of the drafting of this, and that was my personal understanding of it, is the way you just described it.
It seems weird to me as an employer that we would have this idea that you'd get, that you'd have 2 years at 5 days and then 1 year at double that, and then the next year, again, you get 5 more days. It seems, do you see what I'm suggesting? 2 years at 5 days seems like a long time, and then your vacation's doubled for 1 year.
A strong incentive to stick around.
Right, and then the next year, it's essentially
It's not really,
tripled.
No,
it's
my
not really
understanding-
doubled. It's,
no.
I see the second, or that next year is the additional 5
That's
days
what
to
I
get you
thought.
to 10
So
days.
First year is
And then
5
5
years.
more for 15, and then 5 more for 20.
Oh, so you get, on this beginning, you get an extra 5 days,
Yes.
it doesn't just stay at
Right.
5 days?
No, that's not my understanding.
No,
No.
it does stay at 5 days.
Year
Or
one and, my understanding is year 1 and 2 are both
5 days.
So
That's the way
each.
it was designed originally.
Yes.
The third year, you get an increase of 5 days to go to 10.
Yes.
And then the next increase is after 4 years, 5
Wait,
more
you-
days.
So
it
the-
sounds to me like you're
the-
saying
the
two different
beginning.
things.
The shift between 3 and 4, I see the 1-year point that you're talking about in between 3 and 4 there. My understanding is that was an incentive to employees to have longer work history with the town.
Yeah, I mean, my instinct would be to make it more balanced would be, this is just an idea, would be to bump from 4th year to 5, either lower 2 to 10 days, or bump the 4th year up to 5 years. It seems weird to be at one position for 2 years, an entirely different one for 1 year, and then for 10 years to be at another one. There's something weird about that. It feels out of balance to me.
So if you work
It's-
for the town of Guilford for 2 years, you only get 5 days vacation.
Each.
Correct,
Yes.
each year. First year you get, and that's a little unclear, but the first year you get 5 days, and then the next year, you get another 5 days.
So that's 10
That's,
days.
well,
No, it's
It's
not
only
10
5
days.
You mean
another
Each
10
year you get 5 days.
So each year, 1 year, 5 years,
Correct.
the next year, 5 years.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then in your third year, you get total
10
of 10
days.
days. You've been increased now,
Right,
5 days.
5
Yeah.
days, so you get a total of 10.
right.
So, I mean,
And
I
so-
was very comfortable with that when we drew it up back where, I don't think it was changed. I think that's what the,
2016.
the policy was
Okay, well, I'm just,
before that.
it just strikes me as a little strange, but.
Well, that's what the discussion
Yeah,
is for.
no, that's good.
So you're going to work with Peter to,
Probably not to adjust the numbers, but
not
just
to adjust the numbers, but to articulate the
the
periodicity of it.
with
Yeah.
Miranda, happy to do that.
Yeah, if, Peter can run a draft by us
Yep.
and
Mhm.
we
Mike?
can, look at it just for clarity.
Sure. My only question is the verbiage at date of hire. And we have a probation period. And during the probation period,
And later on, in the second
says
paragraph,
right
it says
here.
there,
I understand, but does it have to read like this up here? That's
It
all.
could say,
Could it-
after
Could it
probation.
say something else? Yes, exactly.
after.
Because to me, that's
Upon
redundant.
completion of probation.
probation.
period.
Yeah,
Initial
exactly.
probation.
I think
Yeah.
that's clearer. If you're trying
Absolutely.
to spend the time to really clarify what we're
Absolutely.
looking at, that would be helpful.
Absolutely. So okay.
Yep.
So I'll draft something and then share it with
Sure,
Ryan
terrific.
on to get feedback
Thank
and
you.
then bring it back to the select board.
All right.
What the hell?
We welcome Gabby.
Did you sign in, Gabby?
Okay, and you're up at the Wyndham Regional Commissioner update is the next item on the agenda.
Excellent, good timing.
Want to invite them up?
Yep, they're coming up.
Okay.
It's on the shoot program.
What a pleasure to see you again.
Good to be here.
Thanks, Miranda.
Thanks for having us.
We said it was nice to see you when we saw you when you came in. Come on.
All right. So thanks for giving us some time, because I know you have a lot to discuss with budget coming up. But Steve and I just wanted to give you a periodic update about Wyndham Regional Commission and what we've been doing, and see if there's any way we can provide additional assistance to the town at this time.
Great.
So just, there's some new members, I don't know, I assume everybody knows what Wyndham Regional Commission is and what they do. Great, so basically, just in case people at home don't know, we serve as the intermediary in the absence of county government between local and state government. It's the short version of what we do.
And I would point out that if anybody wants a more detailed thing, on page 39 of last year's town report, there's a detailed description of what the WRC is, the towns it serves, what it does, and so forth on a broad basis. So we provide a report for the town, or an annual report to put in the town report every year.
And the town should be receiving that pretty soon. We have a draft circulating around, so.
Great.
And then just a reminder of who is representing Guilford, because Guilford has a pretty strong representation right now at WRC. Steve and I are the appointed reps. We're both on the executive board. I'm the chair, and I'm the chair of the Natural Resources Committee and Brownfields Steering Committee, and Steve is chair of the newly created Emergency Management Committee. And then Linda Hecker is the Citizens Interest Commissioner for Conservation Commissions. So, right, there's 27 towns, there's up to 2 reps from every town, plus 9 or 10 Citizens Interest Commissioners who are part of the commission. So, I don't know how much you know already, but this year was pretty much marked by a lot of changes and challenges at Wyndham Regional Commission. It's a good news. We have a lot of new commissioners and a lot of good new energy in the commission. And we started out by, we actually revised all of our organizational documents this year to start making things current, which isn't exciting, but it served us well in things that transpired later in our fiscal year. Which leads me to staff updates. So Mike Shaughnessy, who was the CFO, financial director for WRC for over 30 years, suddenly passed. So there was, in July, which was a huge loss, not only institutionally, but just he was extremely well respected within WRC and outside of WRC and gave a lot of his time. So there's a grieving process within the organization, to put it lightly.
And I might add that there was a grieving process that just naturally took place in the face of the audit being, I mean, you can just imagine what that means in the normal, everything from making payroll, on a Friday to getting the state audit done and everything else. So it has been a really active time for Chris Campany, the executive director, and Bobby Kilburn, the treasurer, and our chair here. So.
But it also means we had a lot of really engaged and commissioners who gave a lot of their time, and that made us a strong, and resilient organization. So that came through this year, but under a very unfortunate context. In light of Mike's passing, we are actually revising all of our financial systems and putting things like redundancies in place so that what happened with one person has a sudden accident or death or whatever, we won't be in the same position. We hired a new financial director, Inessa, and she started in August. So we're on a good path. We just finished our FY18 audit and we're moving forward with closing out FY19's financials. But we're in a good position financially, a strong position. Emily, who was Natural Resources staff planner, also departed for other things. And we replaced her with Margot Gia, and she started in September.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Main Street Arts.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
great.
yeah. Margot's great. So if you haven't met her or interacted with her yet, I'm sure you will. And then Marianne, who was our energy planner and transportation planner, was on maternity leave, and some good news, she had a baby girl and she'll be back in mid-November. So Chris has been filling different roles over different periods of time depending on who's absent and not. So thank you to him. We have some new committees we created this year, the main one being the Emergency Management Committee, and I will let Steve talk about that as he is the newly appointed chair and is guiding and forming that committee from scratch.
Well, that's a bold statement to make. Most of you know Alyssa Sabetto from many times that she's been in this room, and everything from helping the town of Guilford do a hazard mitigation plan years ago to flood and fluvial erosion information and so forth. But the emergency, it's sort of emergency committee, but it's emergency planning and management. And one of the things that the Emergency Planning Committee involves prevention, preparation, response, recovery, and mitigation. Prevention and preparation are, as you might do, whether it's your health or whether it's emergency planning, the two most important ones to provide the town with reasons not to have to do a response, recovery, and mitigation. But when there's hurricanes and other things, this is the planning committee that goes into full swing, including if there are issues like there were recently farther up the state. The Wyndham Regional Commission is heavily involved in communications, both because of its long-term involvement in all of this and the respect that it gets throughout the state. So, but the two projects that one project we just completed to a point of hoping we never have to use it is a phone protocol. Peter, who's the new emergency management director for the town, I think at the last meeting, one of the recent meetings, I reported briefly on it. Peter's the emergency management director. We had it was recognized a few years ago that there was a gap for vulnerable populations. Those people, not necessarily just elderly folks or somebody else, but somebody who's released from a hospital and is home and all of a sudden is incapacitated for a couple weeks, and that's when something strikes. So we had some very good meetings, which Peter attended, roundtables with the emergency management directors, the fire department, and the care and giving groups and the assistance giving groups. So everything from like Guilford Cares to hospice to visiting nurses. And I believe from the response that we've gotten at all the meetings, collectively that group of people put together a very effective telephone protocol procedure. And the main difference between what was in place and what now is in place is that before, fire departments and rescue and others depended on getting some list in advance of people who, on that day that the list was created, might need help in an emergency. Well, the day after that list is created, it's obsolete because somebody else gets added, somebody comes off. And there's also HIPAA rules and things that preclude people from saying this person needs help because of this. So what we basically did is took that sort of pre-listing being done, taking that out of the mix and put it in the hands of the care and assistance groups, so that when there's an emergency, the care groups will get in touch with their clients. They will assess, along with the fire departments, the emergency management directors, Green Mountain Power, and also any other situations that are involved in a particular emergency. But a long-term snow event that takes down power just a year ago, in December or whatever it was, that everybody was out for 4 or 5 days. And that's a critical piece. So what happens now is that the caregiving groups will contact their clients. They'll say, are you okay? Do you need to get out? Do you need help? They know if somebody needs oxygen in 3 days, so there's no problem today, but they will then get back in touch with the EMD and or the fire department and say, these are our clients who will need help today, tomorrow, the next day, 3 days after that. So it's a much more efficient situation. There's also a spreadsheet that gives everybody the names of the primary and the secondary contacts in town. So it sounds very basic, but when nothing was in place like that, that now has taken place, this obsolete list situation, I think it's a very important piece of work. And the next project that we anticipate having started maybe as early as January is roundtable discussions on school safety. And whatever that means in the broadest sense, really it's to bring together best practices that are happening in the 27 towns that the Wyndham Regional Commission serves. So we'll start those those discussions and potential plans for saying, oh, that's a good idea, why don't we do that here? Or that doesn't work here because it works this way.
Is the hope to come up with a kind of template or plan for?
It would be, as Wyndham Regional works, it would be to create something that if a town says, or a school system says, we would like to have a template or some guidance on this, here's what we've done, to step in. But one thing you should know is the Wyndham Regional Commission is never a mandatory organization. Right. If the town does a town plan, it's not mandatory that the town submit the plan to the Wyndham Regional Commission. It's highly recommended because the planning and project review group knows from seeing many of the town plans, what's in one that's not in another and what works well. But also it helps facilitate getting grants for the town if they say, do you have a town plan and has it been approved by your local regional planning commission? So anyway.
To tie into that, I last week was contacted by our fire chief. Actually, I presume in preparation for that later this winter, that Jared's been in discussion already with John over at the school, and they hope to be coming to a select board meeting to chat with you folks about the work that they would like to see done. Because I know that earlier this year, Jared and John went to a couple of different trainings around school safety, and so they've been working on some ideas around that, and are interested in involving the select board in some of those things.
And your intention is to come up, just to underline it, with a product of these roundtable discussions?
Well, if they go there, I mean, we're not dictating to the EMDs and the fire department or the schools or anything
Yeah,
else.
but it wouldn't have to be a dictation.
Right,
It could be a.
it's bringing people together and
Yeah.
say, here's what we've learned.
Convening.
Are people comfortable with sharing the findings and what's happening in each of the schools?
Great.
And then another thing we've been working on is broadband. You all signed on to the grant proposal, so I'm assuming you know that, WRC submitted a proposal in response to the feasibility study with Rural Innovation Strategies and ValleyNet to work on a feasibility broadband study. That was submitted in October, and just to clarify, WRC's role is focused on outreach with the towns. That's why they partnered with RISI and ValleyNet. And just to be clear that WRC isn't making money off of this grant. We are only asking to be made whole, and so we've only asked to be paid for staff time. So that's our role and what we see as a facilitator with that grant proposal.
When do you expect to hear from about that?
I don't know. I know in January, at our full commission meeting in January, the partners are going to come make a presentation to the full commission, and of course our meetings are always public, and we were going to invite municipalities to attend that as well to learn more. We just had our annual meeting. 23 out of 27 towns were present. We don't do phone or Skype or anything, because we try and get together all in person. Jans Hilke from the Department of Fish and Wildlife was there to present on the Staying Connective initiative. We invited all the towns, conservation, select boards, and planning commissions to join because that particular initiative works on connectivity across sort of northern Appalachia into Canada, focusing on wildlife and plant impacts as a result of habitat fragmentation and climate change. This sort of builds into what's going on at a more regional level, with WRC receiving a grant from the High Meadows funds to continue I forget what they're calling themselves now, connectivity.
The Wyndham Connectivity Committee.
Something, yeah.
WCC.
Yeah, they've been changing their names, which focuses on Marlborough, Halifax, and Guilford. And it also plays into Act 171, which was, put into place in 2018, which our new town plan will have to address.
And the High Meadows Fund, which was a grant that was given now for the second year, was responsible for creating the Green River Watershed Alliance. And that's been a really active group on everything from this connectivity to conservation to preservation and so forth. So looking at the concept of compact housing and broad blocks of wilderness to connect things through. So, and Jens's presentation that he did for the full meeting in October is also on the WRC website. So it's worth taking a look at.
And does everyone understand how WRC's funding works? That it's all, majority is contract based, from ACC to ANR, VTrans, with maybe a small percentage funded by towns. And even though it's like 5% funded by towns, we don't want to discount that because it is the most flexible funding we have available, right? Other than that, WRC needs to tie its work to a contract or a private grant.
Yeah, each of the staff members, as they work through the day, have to keep, just as if they were lawyers or somebody else getting paid,
Keep a tab.
they have to keep a tab of where it's billed to. So you take a call, and this has to go here, and then that has to go there. It's somewhat cumbersome, but that's the joy and sorrow of being grant funded
Right.
and reporting on same.
I'm pretty sure their timesheets are, I think, 3 pages. So it's pretty detailed. Other than that, that's our update for the year, or sort of periodic update. I didn't know, I know Peter asked us to just come and speak generally. I didn't know if there was something specific we could answer or specific needs you wanted to have addressed.
Any questions or comments?
We also wanted to thank you both for all the time that you give on
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Linda Hecker, too. She's,
Oh, yeah.
so I mean, to have Linda be the natural resources community interest person is perfect, so. One other thing that I'll point out is that every 2 months, or on a regular, I think it's every 2 months, the Wyndham Regional Commission does a WRC staff activity highlights. So I don't know if you want them or not, but, I just point out, it's all 9 committees. It's 8 pages of what's happened over the 2 months. And we're not talking about showed up at work, went to lunch, went home. We're talking about did this meeting, started this initiative. If you were to look at the the emergency planning side of things, you'd see the number of meetings that it takes. But this represents all 9 committees that are standing at this point, and there's 126 items in here, just from July and August. So what it does do is it gives you an idea of what's happening in other towns. Like you look and say, oh, this is what Halifax is doing, this is what Windhall's doing, this is what Searsburg is doing. So it might generate some enthusiasm. I'll send it to you, Richard.
Yes, please do.
Yeah,
I'm very interested in
Okay,
reading it, yeah.
I'll
Send it to the select board.
I'll send it to the whole group, and then
Yeah.
you can look at it. If there's some question that you have at a certain point, get in touch with me or Gabby.
Right.
How much communication is there between, among the regional commissions within the state? I mean, WRC is so essential to our area, and I know that all of the regional planning groups serve the same functions, but I wondered whether there was some kind of communication coordination among them.
There's a state organization, Chris is actually the chair, president, I forget which, of, it's VAPTA, Vermont Association of whatever planners. And so he attends meetings regularly, and aside from that, a lot of the contracts come through and are negotiated jointly throughout the RPCs. So there's a lot of connection between the RPCs and communication.
And it's not just, here's what we're doing, what are you doing? It's a real collegial, caring group of 11 RPCs across the state, and they share a lot of the same issues and a lot of the same information, which then comes back to the towns individually, which I think helps across the board.
Especially even with, with Mike's passing this summer, I mean, other RPCs stepped up and have volunteered to help us without,
Fantastic.
Oh, absolutely. So there's a good amount of communication and camaraderie and collegiality. And they definitely share documents too. Like I know Alyssa did a particular emergency management document for how to save, make sure your pets are taken care of in an emergency. And I think she passed that along to the rest of the state. So I think Emily Davis did a little brochure about stormwater and the Water Act, and that got passed along. So there's definitely a good amount of communication.
Any other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much. That was an
You're welcome.
outstanding report. Thank you.
Thank you, guys, that's great.
And thank you for the work
Appreciate
that
it.
you're doing. All right, now the warrants.
The warrants. Big
Bum,
warrants.
ba-da-bum, bum.
I will make the motion to pay the following warrants. Payroll week ending 11/3/19 for $9,624.72. Payroll week ending 11/10/19 for $8,273.34. Expense warrant number 2009, $3,381. And let me start over, it's such a big number. $3,381,486.10. Expense warrant number TR09 for $51,653.66. and expense warrant number FW09 for $132, for a grand total of $3,451,169.82.
Any comments?
I do want the comments. Zahn has seconded, so now we will go to comments. So the comments. I have to look at my notes. So expense warrant number 2009 reflects the school budget, the reimbursement from taxes to directly that go to the school budget of $3,254,886.21, which brings the rest of that warrant down to $126,599.89, of which our new loader, which was a capital planned investment purchase, was $92,000, which brings that number down to $34,599.89, of which the majority of the other pieces of that are fairly typical. So hopefully that's not too confusing.
Not at all.
And then on expense warrant number TR09 for $51,653.66, that's a reflection of the homestead tax rebate that is provided from, or put out from the town back to the people that had overpaid taxes based on the homestead.
Thank you, Gordon. So we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor of paying these warrants?
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimously agreed to. Thank you very much. Now, we have executive session on the agenda, but I don't think that we need to do that because we haven't settled the language that impacts that, or has an impact on what we were going to discuss.
If that's what you feel, that's perfectly fine by me.
Because we had a personnel issue, but it's tied to the language of this personnel policy. And so if we don't have the personnel policy straightened out.
I think it's kind of, 6 of one, half a dozen of another. I think you all have generally agreed on, because I think that the issue at hand relates to the personnel policy as it stands, not the way it will be corrected.
Okay, then we
be
should vote
corrected.
to it.
It's my personal opinion, but if you want
Yeah,
to wait
why
till
don't we-
after you finalize it, that's up to you as well.
But what's the,
I think we ought to deal with it if
Yeah,
okay.
in
If you
preparation.
think we have
So
enough
do I have a motion to
information.
go into executive session?
So there's actually, you have to have two,
Oh.
so your first motion is you need a motion.
I will move that premature knowledge of discussions could potentially put the town at significant disadvantage.
So that's your first motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed?
Okay, and then your second motion.
I move to enter into executive session at 7:26 PM and invite Peter Ruud to join to discuss personnel matters per 1 VSA 313A1.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously carried. We will go into executive session.
Are
Thank you,
passing
Ian.
these?
The Guilford Select Board is exiting executive session at 7:49 PM, and we have taken no action on a personnel matter.
I would like to, the communications.
We have one communication, it's very short and sweet, is we have our final audit from the auditor. I've got a couple copies if you wish to look at it. It's the exact same way, they made the corrections that we discussed whatever, couple months ago. It looks great.
Good.
That's all I have.
Now I'd like to make a motion that
Please
we
do.
adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Certainly.
Okay, all in favor?
Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian.
Signatures from you, Rich.